Hey, everyone, and welcome to this week's episode of the Top Producing Zone podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Michael Jin.
And I'm your co-host, Shane Carvalho.
And I'm the dear guest, Irina Portnova.
We are so thrilled to have you, Irina. We have Irina Portnova today. She is a certified manifestation coach, international best-selling author, podcast host. She really loves to help clients live their best lives by filling the gap between where they are now and where they want to be. She loves helping clients realize they are more powerful than their circumstances, their situations, their conditions, and seeks to inspire others to look inward, gain confidence in themselves, explore, and realize their deepest passions and goals in life. So, Irina, with that, welcome to the show. And we are also, I am now confirming, live on YouTube streaming.
I believe we're live on, at least on my Instagram.
It looks like we are live on Facebook, but this is fun. So anyone that's out there watching live right now, welcome to the show. It's our first time going live.
Let's create the action.
Let's create the action. Exactly. I love it. So, Irina, let's start with this, because when I think this, some partially joking, but when I think about manifestation, it's funny. The first thing that comes to my mind is I'm a huge basketball fan, and I think back to like when the Lakers drafted Lonzo Ball from UCLA, and his dad LeVar was like just a really big talker, right? And he always had this statement. He's like, I'm just going to speak things into existence, right? And a lot of things that he talked about came into being, right? So, but for those people out there that don't really fully know what manifestation is, like maybe let's start there. Like, how would you define manifestation?
Such a great question, Michael. And you just brought it so beautifully. And it's true. We are all manifesting, but a lot of people don't understand. Manifesting, it means whatever we are thinking about, whatever we are speaking out, what we emotions are putting together with that, everything is coming into the real life. So we constantly manifest, but majority of people do it unconsciously because they don't understand the connection of their thinking to actually what they create. Because we are all creating the results in our life, and our results is the true connection between our mindset. So if we look at our current results that we create in everything in our life, in health, in love and relationship, in our business and career, in financial freedom, we can connect these results exactly to our thinking. So manifestation is actually the conscious process where we direct our energy to create something that we truly want rather than creating what we do not want. But 90% of people, I would say even 98, they create exactly what they do not want because they constantly say, oh my God, I'm so scared to get sick, right? And the more they think about it, they give a lot of energy to that. And that's exactly what shows up for them, right? Or they say, oh my God, I finally found that love of my life, but I'm so scared. They always look into the past, whatever happened to them, and they just projecting that to their future because they constantly speak about it. They constantly think about it. And that's exactly what we want to bring the awareness to people, that we can create consciously our results. And let's put some thoughts before we actually speak the words that we are speaking and create exactly the life that empowers us, the life that we truly want.
That's a really great definition, and I appreciate that because it reminds me of, Shanne and I have done on past episodes of the podcast, we've talked about different like mindsets, right? And there's a quote that I shared on the last one that we had. I think it's from Henry Ford. It was like, if you think you can, or if you think you can't, either way, you're right. And I think oftentimes that happens, right? You're saying like when we start thinking like negatively, whether we realize it or not, our actions, our body, our thoughts respond to that, right? And to your point, like a lot of times people don't even realize it. Like subconsciously, they're thinking about it, but they don't realize they're thinking about it. And then they just subconsciously start reacting to it. So I'm kind of curious for those that, want to try to change that around or want to be able to identify, subconsciously what they might be doing to manifest more of the negative and turn that into manifesting more of the positive. Like, what are some ways people can start
Oh my
by
God,
doing that?
this is so beautiful. First of all, I just wanted to point out that we always want to connect to our emotions because our emotions are connected to our frequency because we are all energetic beings, right? If we take out the bones, the skin, there is a pure energy and we are all vibrating on a specific frequency. Whatever level of vibration we have, we actually attract everything with that level of vibration. So when we talk about the emotions, how do we know which vibrations we are vibrating? Either they are high or low. The highest are love, gratitude, joy, right? So the most important emotions, the most strongest emotions that we carry are love and fear. And majority of people act from fear. They are afraid to lose the job. They are afraid to get sick. They are afraid to lose the partner. So all the time it's fear, fear, fear. Then they watch the news and they feed more with that fear. Like what's going on with the economy? Look at this politics, and everything. They're always looking from the outside to determine how they're going to be feeling inside. Right? But the idea is to connect with love, which is also as strong as fear, but love is on a higher frequency. So rather than thinking, I'm afraid of this, this, and that, why don't we start thinking, what would I love for myself? And forget about everything around ourselves because people always wait for the circumstances to change before they change themselves. But the point is, we are the mirror of the outer reality that we are experiencing. And that's exactly very important for us to connect with that. So when we come from the point of love, rather than just saying what I'm scared of, just say, what would I love in my life, right? And a lot of people don't even have the answer for this question because nobody ever asks us that. All the time we heard, you have to do this, you have to do that at work, at home, from our parents, from partners, from the kids. Even my kids boss me around, okay? So the point is, when is that time when we actually connect with ourselves and start questioning, what exactly would I love for my life? And a lot of people don't even know the answer, but the best way to do it, start thinking what you do not want in your life anymore. And that would be a great point because the opposite of that you do not want to have is going to be what exactly you want to have. And the best way to start is looking at your life, right? And I have this beautiful free workshop that I do twice a month where people can come in and we do the life assessment. We look at all areas of the lives and see which area of the life speak to them the most. And then we create that beautiful vision because everything has to start from the vision. Because there is no wind in the favor of the sailor who doesn't have the direction. And our energy has to have the direction. Because when we know where we are going, we know the destination and we make sure that we arrive at that destination.
No, I love that so much. And I think it's kind of perfect timing, I think, for those that are listening in today, because we are, at the beginning of a new year, right? And usually at the beginning of a new year, people start talking about and reflecting on, okay, what happened last year and where do I want to go this year? And I think it's really cool that you're talking about that and talking about setting the vision, which then really will come down and drive the goals that you set up. And I think it's also important, like when we think about the goals for ourselves, and maybe you can kind of get into this a little bit more too about how you coach your clients. But I've always been kind of, in the past, when I would set goals for myself, it used to be always very like business focused, like I'm going to do X number of sales in real estate this year. Or I'm going to accomplish this and that. And it's always exterior focused, right? But over the last few years, I've started to be a lot more holistic about how I set my goals too. And I use this acronym a lot. It's called PIES. I learned it from a mentoring coaching class I had before. And it's like different categories and areas to set up goals in, right? It's like, you don't want to just set up like your business goals, but like the P in PIE stands for like, okay, what are your physical goals? The I is like, how do you want to grow intellectually? E is kind of how you want to grow emotionally. And then S is like, if you believe in it, like, how do you want to grow spiritually? And I think that's kind of important. Like, as you're talking about, kind of reflecting in on what it is we need. I think as people are looking into this new year, trying to set goals for themselves, I think it's also important to set like comprehensive goals for yourself.
Yeah, well, I agree with you, Michael. And I mean, the thing is too, what I was, yesterday in our mastermind, we did a follow-up on setting goals. And what Michael's saying is exactly what I was telling like the newer agents. It's not just, oh, we got these numbers we want to tackle. It's your whole life. But I think that what I'm seeing from the connection when you start talking about manifestation is that right now it's like the goals are over here and you're over here. I feel like manifesting is connecting these two where you're actually making it happen, because it is like what Michael's saying. It does seem like an exterior, you know what I mean? It seems like an exterior thing, right? It seems like it's out here by itself. And then bringing in all the pieces that make it part of your lifestyle. In fact, we had a great podcast this morning when we were talking about time. Time was a big thing. And so anyway, I'll let you continue. But I mean, Michael, I totally can relate to what you're saying.
Shane, great point.
Well, and Irina, maybe you can talk a little bit about like to what Shane's talking about, right? You have the goals and kind of where we are. How do you like help your clients?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I love to have the dreams. And I always say to people, right, because I'm a very spiritual person and I'm all in the manifestation field, I say, what is the difference between dream and the goal? Goal is something that is attainable. You can figure out how to get to that goal. But dream is something out of your mind. Like if you think about it, you get scared how big it is because you have no even clue how you're going to arrive to that destination. But that's exactly what manifestation is all about, right? So the way we break it down, we say the dream written down with the date. That's exactly what the vision statement come into the place when we place our vision together for all the areas of our life, right? The dream written down with the date becomes the goal. The goal breaking down into the steps become the action plan. And the action plan implemented becoming your real life. So that's exactly how you're breaking it down. And yes, without the goal, like I said, either this is goal or dream, whatever you believe in and whatever is keeping your nervous system in balance, because a lot of people like really get too anxious about how am I going to reach it, right? But the point is when we have something that we set up for ourselves, like I said, the way our energy works, we have to have the direction. We have to have the plan in place. And once we have it, we already going to break it down in the small steps, because remember, baby steps take us to the Mountain Everest. And understand that during this time frame, it's going to be the failures, it's going to be the setbacks, but it shouldn't scare us, because that's the time when we actually grow. Because without the challenges, you cannot grow. It means we are just sitting in our zone of comfort, and there is no growth in the zone of comfort. That's why it's so important to have the growth mindset, because as long as we are breathing, we are growing. And if we are not growing, we are dying. Because there is no point in life, there is no zest to life when you're just sitting in your comfort zone. So basically, everybody can achieve the goal. Everybody can have their dream. But first, it comes from the point, do you actually believe in yourself? And sometimes it's hard to believe in yourself. That's why it's so important to stay in the structure of support. Like Shane was mentioning about mastermind. Michael was mentioning about mindset coach. So basically you stay in the structure of support with somebody who has some system, proven system that actually guarantees the result as long as you put the work in. Same way as I have this beautiful program by my mentor that generates the results. Thousands of people generates the results, but it works when you work it, right? You have to put the work in.
Yeah, well,
it's not just a wishful thinking.
Well, the reaching, and obviously manifesting, and, obviously you can't grow in your comfort zone. It's funny because yesterday someone mentioned Gary Vee, or I don't know if maybe it was this morning, but, I was just remembering what Gary Vee said one time, which I've never forgotten, is like, you got to keep innovating, because when you stop innovating, you die. Look at what happened to Toys R Us. There's other companies too, but like basically you got to stay ahead. And if you don't have a growth mindset, then, you get left in the dust. And not only that, forget about competition in your field of, whatever your career is, but on the same token, just in personal growth, because it doesn't have to be just your business. It's also for your own personal goals, whether it's like you want to be a certain strength in the gym, or whether you want to, maybe you want to run a marathon, but you can't get more than half, like whatever your goals are, that stretch. you have to stretch or you won't get there. You'll never achieve it. Doing the same thing, it's when they tell you what the definition of insanity is, right? Doing the same thing and expecting a different result. That's how a lot of people live their daily lives. And so, I love this.
Shanne, can I just add to that? That's the point, right? Stretching yourself.
You're the guest. You can do whatever you want.
The way I say, shoot for the moon and land on the stars, because you have to make it big so you can reach still a great potential of yourself. And we are just exercising 5% of our potential. Imagine if we could exercise 5 extra percent, how much we could grow in all areas of our life. It's just like people have to be curious. They have to say, okay, I'm so sick and tired to have the same results from year to year and constantly complaining about it and nothing is changing, right? Let me be the creator of my life. Let me be in charge of my life. Let me become a leader of my life. Stop looking from the excuses and saying it can't be done because, the market is bad. I cannot find a better job. My boss is bad. My wife is bad, or my husband, right? Stop looking from the outside. Start understanding what exactly you want and be the leader of your own life.
Well, in the end, what you're saying too about improving just a little bit. And it's funny, this week I've heard so much of this over and over because it rings true for everywhere. And, but even if it's just 1 or 2% better than last week, because one thing that, Michael and I were talking about this morning is we always want that instant gratification. And we want to all of a sudden, that's like, for instance, New Year's resolutions, right? That's why people quit at the gym. They're there for 2 or 3 weeks. Oh my God, I didn't lose my 50 pounds. I'm not coming anymore. And, in fact, this year I haven't even seen as many people at the gym as usual. But anyway, usually you get 100% more people at the gym, and then half of them are gone by the end of January. And that's just because of the fact that they're setting this big goal. They're not breaking it down, realizing that in incremental little steps, you can get there. So I like that. You said 5%. Hell, I was always like 5, 10, 15, 20. I want a lot. But now, I'm content with 1 to 2%.
Well, I was going to say, I think a lot of people are out of the gym by the second week of January with the way things go for some people. But I think you're right. It's we talked about, I think you always kind of want to be moving forward, right? You want to have that momentum moving forward and never moving backwards. And it's also about, like Irina, you were mentioning earlier, you might fail, right? You might, but then that's okay. I think part of this process of growth is also just being able to show yourself a lot of grace through the process, knowing that you're committing yourself to taking action, you're being consistent with that action, right? And you're just slowly moving forward in the right direction.
Right. And it requires a lot of discipline, right? When we talk about self-growth, meeting the goals, accomplishing something, it's a lot of discipline. And a lot of times when people are on their own, it's difficult to be on this journey by ourselves. That's why the most successful people, they always have mentors, they always have coaches, and people don't even aware about it. Like I always say, there is never the lack of abundance in the universe. It's the lack of awareness. Just because people do not know something, it doesn't mean that it's not existing. It's the same way for me. Before I came to be a manifestation coach, I didn't even know about life coaching at all. Until pandemic hit, I lost my job and I'm like, what am I going to do now with my life? I started really exploring where can I go, starting to dig into my gifts and talents. And then my daughter at the same time, she just lost all the, all the desire to study in high school during, homeschooling. And she's like, Mom, hire me the therapist. And we reached out to the dance teacher because I didn't know any therapist. And she said, oh, I don't know any therapist, but I have this amazing girl. She's a life coach. And that was the first time, guys, I heard the term life coach. So it's never the lack of abundance. It's the lack of the awareness. Just because we do not know something, it doesn't mean that we cannot have everything what we want. It's all about start really paying attention. And there is that interesting factor. We have the reticular activation system. So this is like a filter in our brain, because we have the thoughts going on all day long and our brain cannot process each thought. So reticular activation system actually filters whatever is important to us. That also comes with the goals, right? When we set something and we direct our energy, our reticular activation system activates that attention, and we start looking around for the answers to find, the destination to our goals. So the same way, if you decide to buy the Mercedes, right? You go into the dealership and you sit in that white Mercedes, you test drive, and then you say, okay, I'm going to go home, I'm going to sleep on it and decide. When you hit the road, whenever you look, all of a sudden you start see Mercedes here, white Mercedes there, right? And it's not because it wasn't there before, but finally you activated your reticular activation system. And that's exactly what you're going to see with the goals and dreams and everything else. So once you understand how everything is connected, it's the power of it. Like, people just get so charged up with, show me the way, tell me how it works. That's when I'm going to be signed up for that. But the idea is you make a decision, you start working, and then everything is going to unfold for you.
I love that. I think part of it, what I've heard from there also, is that the whole concept of multitasking does not work. But I love your car example too, because that actually has happened to me too. Like, I get into, like, I drive my car, and then as soon as I go to the dealership, I buy my new car, and then I'm like on the road, and all of a sudden, to your point, like, I start seeing my car, like versions of my car on the road everywhere, whereas before I really wasn't paying attention to it. And we were also talking about, in a podcast this morning, it's like, once you have your goals and you break it down into actionable steps, to your point earlier, it becomes less of this like nebulous idea up here that just seems so far out of reach, right? When you break down the problem, let's say you're like, oh, I want to do like 25 million in real estate sales every year. You break it down ultimately, and at the end of the day, your goal every week might be like, well, how many clients do I have to interact with? And let's just say, I'm going to make up a number, like 30 clients every week I have to come into contact with, right? That becomes, while it's still a stretch, it becomes a much more tangible number to be able to reach, right? And then when you have a tangible number that you can reach, then to what you were saying earlier, like, I forget the term, but your system's activated, right? And then you start thinking more creatively, I feel like, also about, okay, what are some ways I can go about like reaching out to new clients if I've already tapped out my like existing sphere, right? And I think you start expanding your horizons, which I think is.
Well, that goes back to pushing those boundaries, like what Irina was saying earlier. That goes pushing, because right now, like, we're so used to, in fact, that opened my eyes this morning, because, like, for instance, even someone like myself that's so established, been doing it for so many years, it's like, if I can just get my regular prospecting done, it's like, oh, that's a challenge sometimes because just time management, right? But it's like, I accomplished that and I feel like I've done it, right? I hadn't thought about pushing the boundaries on that. And this morning it was interesting, in that other session we're in this morning, talking about, pushing, like, even making new contacts. Like, sure, I make new contacts, but we do it like, I sat on the plane next to some guy the other day, and he's some business guy from down south, and we just started chatting and we shared contact. Or, maybe you bump into somebody, you have a good conversation with at the grocery store. But this is actually, I hadn't even thought about the intentional act of actually going and making those contacts, which is this morning when we were talking about it. Remember, Michael, you were saying there was one guy that was like, had to make like 30 new contacts a day or something like that. I mean, that really pushes your boundary to go meet 30 new people every day. That's a chore.
It, like, kind of what Irina's talking, it opens you up to just like new ideas, right? Like that guy, I mean, this was dated a while back, but it's like, he went to Barnes and Noble to start meeting people, right? It's like, if you didn't have a specific goal, you probably wouldn't have thought about, hey, that's an avenue I can go to and leverage that environment to be able to find potential clients.
Michael, I love two things you mentioned. I have to tell about it. Ideas, because idea is the first currency from the universe. You can get $1 idea or you can get $1 million idea. Everything starts from the idea. And the other thing you mentioned about thinking creatively, that's exactly what I teach people to do, because we are so prone to always look at our logic, at our analytical mind. We are not using the part of brain which is creative. But this is the type of the brain that actually bring all these beautiful phenomena, into existence. Everything was created from that side of our brain. So people had the vision. And that vision was implemented into something, right? Like Brothers Wright, when they were coming up with the first airplane, they just made it up in their vision, in their mind. And they were not like caught up, like, where do we get finances? How is it going to happen, right? But they were so driven by that desire. That's exactly what's important in the work that I'm doing. You have to have that passionate desire inside of you that you wake up every morning, whether you want something to do or not. But when you connect to that vision, you see yourself there. You see how happy you are with having everything what you desire. It's going to push you to do something that you might not want to do, but you continue doing it because this is going to give you the life.
Yeah, well, there's two things on that note. One is you have to have a strong enough belief system that you're not going to let other people derail you, right? Because there's all the naysayers, right? Like, you just basically have to stay focused on that. The other thing, too, is that you got to be okay with putting in the work every day, even when you're not seeing the results. You have to be consistent. You have to be consistent knowing that if you really believe in what you're doing, you just keep working at it. And then sometimes results are going to come in bunches, Like, for instance, in our business in real estate, as established as you might be with your database and everything else, I mean, there's still months where you close 6 or 7 escrows, another month where you close 1. It just, things come in bunches. But it's like, if you have a month where you did 1, you might panic and be like, oh, I suck. I should just not put as much effort because I'm not getting the results. But no, that's not true. You got to keep doing the work and not rely on the instant gratification. And so I wanted to add that because I think that's important when you get to that step.
And what I also wanted to point out, Shane, great comments. What I wanted to point out, when there are not so great months, always remember your successes, because like I said, our mind is always thinking about negative, right? So we're so charged up. We don't really celebrate ourselves when we're doing, great. So in the months where we are underperforming, we just have to connect. Look at me. In the past, I did create these beautiful results. What does it mean? It means I can recreate them again, and I can even surpass them. So always hold that energy. Again, it's all about the frequency. What frequency we are operating on, that's exactly what we are going to be attracting in our life.
Well, practicing gratitude, right? Like practicing gratitude, that's why it's so important. Celebrating the small wins and being grateful.
Right.
Right. So
yes.
I think that.
And yes. And stay in the like-minded, community, like you mentioned, because the people with, common hour thinking, those are the people who don't understand us. They look at us like we have 3 ears, 5 eyes, right? And they think that we are like delusional. We are just living somewhere else in La La Land. But the point is that they are sleeping. They are not awakened to who we really are and what our potential is. So when we stay in the community of like-minded people who have the same goals, who have the same dreams, who are going to the same way, in the same direction, you always have that support. You always have somebody to lean on. And obviously, if you're staying with the structure, like I have 3 coaches right now. I have business coach, I have mindset coach, and I have my sales and marketing coach. And you know what? All of them are feeding so much into me, because I know I want to be with somebody who already got the results. And I know that person could take me there. So when somebody comes to me and tell me something like, are you out of your mind? And I say, you know what? Are you where I am going? Are you at that level where I'm going? And if the person says no, then I'm sorry, I'm not taking your advice, because you are not somewhere where I want to be. So it's very important to remember, right? You want to work with people who already achieved the results. And I don't know how much you know about, there is such a field, it's called human design. So there are like all these different things that we can actually explore about ourselves. There is a numerology, there is astrology, there is human design. So human design, once you tap into it, you know exactly who you are and what are your gifts and talents and how to go about it. So my human design is manifest and generator. And I do manifest things very fast. That's why I chose this field, because I manifested so many things for myself. And I know I can take people to places that they would be scared to go on.
Well, and I think, yeah, I mean, and I think that's really, it is really important, like who you're surrounding yourself with, right? Like you are the average of the top 5 people that you surround yourself with. And I think to your point, it's like, it's always seems like it's a constant like growth process, like we talked about earlier, right? Like where you are today, are you surrounding yourself with the right people, right? And as you continue to grow, I think it's important to not just, again, to not stay stagnant, right? As you continue to grow, also then evaluate again, like, okay, am I still surrounding myself with the right people? If not, like that maybe I need to expand my horizons again and find new coaches or new mentors and whatnot that can take me from, I've already jumped from level A to B. Now, how do I jump from level B to C, right? And it's that constant, I guess, like feedback loop and mechanism of evaluating where you are, figuring out what you need to do next, and then reevaluating again so you can keep growing and building.
So true. And it's all about raising our awareness. So we move from one level of awareness to the next, and it's never finishing job, right? Because we always want to explore. We always want to know more. And once you start with that field, like once you start really get interested in self growth, it's like there is no stop of point of return, because it's so interesting, right? It's like you wake up every morning with the curious mindset rather than just thinking about, oh my God, what things I have to tackle today. You have that curiosity mindset like a child, right? Because I always say we have to connect with our inner child and do everything easy, effortlessly, and in a playful way. Because that's what we are meant to do. We don't mean to suffer or go through the struggles. Once we connect to exactly who we are and what we are here to do, the life becomes easy, the life becomes abundant, and everything happening for us.
I love that you brought up the concept of the inner child, because that's something that like I've been digging into a lot recently, because it is true. Like you talk about like, why sometimes we have negative thoughts, right? And how we should like turn this around, try to feed ourselves more positive thoughts, positive reflections on the wins that we have in life. And a lot of times it's, in my own like kind of just analysis, like a lot of that sometimes comes from our like family of origin, right? Like the environment that we grew up in, potentially like how we were raised by our parents. And a lot of times as your kid and as you're growing up, like you're not really aware of how that truly impacts you. And you get to an adult, you're like, well, why do I react in certain situations the way that I do? Or why do I think about things the way that I do? And a lot of times it goes back to that inner child, right? And a lot of the research I've been reading is, to your point, you really have to connect like within all of us. It sounds silly, but there is that inner child, right? There's that inner child that has stayed with us from the time we were little to where we are now. And that inner child has, been what's the word I'm looking for, has been trained, right, based on the environment that we grew up in. And now it's a matter of, as we're adults, like reshaping what that training is. And a lot of times it's about reconnecting with your inner child, like you said, and kind of almost reparenting ourselves in a way that allows us to develop a new mindset and to be able to further our growth.
Right, because the idea is that we are all born with the genius mind. And remember when we were like 5 years old, we were dreaming to be astronauts, actors, like having all these big dreams, right? And nothing could stop us. And then the older we grow, our parents used to tell us like, stop daydreaming, come back to the life, go back, study your books, because, you have to pick the major that's going to generate profit for you, right? And all of that, those are the beliefs that we ingrained in ourselves. And this is the operating system. And, I'm a big fan of Bob Proctor's work, and he calls it paradigm. Paradigm is just the operating system. Each one of us has the paradigm. It's not negative connotation. It's only like everybody has their own operating system that we operate from. And all these beliefs, like you mentioned, all stored in our subconscious mind. And 99% we are just acting from our subconscious mind, because it's all of the habits that we already used to have, our, like beliefs and everything, right? So the point is now, let's be more aware of it, and let's reprogram our mind, right? Let's get rid of these limited beliefs and make more powerful beliefs, knowing that everything is possible if you believe in it.
Yeah, no, I can totally relate to the limited career opportunities when I was growing up. Being an only Chinese child, right? Doctor, lawyer, engineer, and business. Those are the four.
Totally.
Don't even think about dreaming about anything else.
Yep, so true. But the point is, and now we all know that once you connect to your passion, because like I said, we all have the gifts and talents. A lot of people didn't even discover. Me, it took a long time to discover, until the pandemic. Like, pandemic was a big wake up moment for me, right? Like we were talking about it before that, right? And it's all about just to connect, because each one of us has this beautiful gift inside. But sometimes we have to discover what it is. And once you connect with that, you have to follow your passion, because that's your purpose, because your gift is important for this world. And once you connect with that, obviously everybody's saying, oh, but there is no money in that. Money is going to follow. As long as you continue pursuing it because you're so good at it, because you were born with that skill, nobody has it but you. You are part of that piece of puzzle that fits into this beautiful masterpiece. You are here with your unique talents. Bring them on. Start doing it, because all the successful people also went through the struggles. It's part of the process. Nobody comes from that, without it, right? Because sometimes we look at these successful people and we think, oh my gosh, they're so lucky. It's just them. It's not us. But the point is, like that picture of the iceberg, where we only see the tip of the iceberg with the success, but nobody sees anything but below, in the water with a lot of challenges, with a lot of setbacks, with a lot of failure, work, discipline, right? Everything that exactly comes to that point when everybody else can see, and they just determine that that person is lucky. There is no such a thing as luck. People did have to put the work for whatever they are right now.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with that. And it's true that people don't see the work. And then, at the same time, I think like even in our business, obviously, real estate's our primary. And, it's one of the businesses now with the advancements of technology and social media and everything else. There are, and I'm not trying to bash anybody at all, but there are people that come in that, think it's easy enough just to come in and, build this reputation and create this persona. They don't realize how much we have to pay our dues. And I feel like it's gotten a little easier to a certain extent because there is so much online and so much you can do without going places. Like you don't have to travel to the office to go sit in a class, and you don't have to write out all this handwritten paper stuff and fax stuff and everything else. I feel like you can accelerate the learning curve. That's why like right now there's people in our industry that are in for a year or two that are having huge success. But I think that it's important to still see that little peak of the glacier that's sticking out of the water. That's the results of a lot of work behind the scenes, whether it's work like some of us old school people that, was just mountains, like massive glacier, to maybe smaller glaciers. I still think that it's important for people to know that happens behind the scenes. So I agree with you there.
Yeah, and I love the fact, Irina, what you were saying about just, everybody has, their unique passions, their unique story. And it's important to get that out there and share that. And I know I myself am guilty of this before. And like, I've run into other agents who have also always wondered like, well, there's so many people out there already doing this. Like, it's too late for me to do it. And like, I mean, and it took me a long time to overcome that mindset of like, no, it's never too late, because you have a unique background, you have a unique story to tell that's specific only to you. And granted, you might be talking about the same topics, but you can spin it based on your own history and your own story. And people crave, I think, especially in this day and age where all you see are the shiny objects, I feel like people really crave that connection, that personal touch, right? And so and this is something I always talk to agents, because it's something I learned myself, is never be afraid to just get your story out there. Because, one thing I realize is like the people that I surround myself with here in the Bay Area, they might have similar experiences, right? But that doesn't mean the audience that I'm talking to, like outside of this area, have had the same experiences. And so something that I might have learned that I want to share, like maybe to my friends here, they might be like, oh, I know that already. But that doesn't mean that there isn't somebody else out there who, may have never heard that, and it impacts them in a way that that may never have happened if I didn't get online, get on video and share that.
Absolutely. And you know what comes to me again, everything is energy. So a lot of people think about the competition, and it's all coming from the scarcity mindset. Like I said, the universe is abundant. So the people that attract to you, Michael, they're not going to attract to Shane because of the energy. You connect with people on the energy. Same thing, whoever is going to attract to Shane, they're not going to attract to you, right? In terms of like, we are talking about like business related, like wants to work with you, right? And people don't understand that concept. And it's all like I said, the energy walks before you actually open your mouth. Like sometimes you could just be next to somebody and you feel like you just want to talk to that person. All of a sudden you develop that connection, right? Before even speaking to them, you have that urge, right? And the other way, sometimes you just look at the person, you didn't even know this person, and you feel like, there is that repellent energy, like, I don't even want to be around that person, right? So energy is real. That's exactly how we all operated. That's exactly how we all communicate. And that's how we all actually create the results that we want. Because once we on the certain frequency, we attract everything on that frequency. That's where that law of attraction comes to the play, because we say like attracts like. Right? So you have to be on the particular frequency. And it's like a radio station. If you are tuning into FM radio, you're not going to hear anything what is in AM, right? You have to tune to that station in order to be like really hearing it. So the same thing with our energy. Once we are operating on a particular frequency, that's exactly the results that we create. And we always can go up in our frequency, but it requires discipline, requires work, requires effort and desire.
That's funny. I was getting some flashbacks on when you were saying like, you just naturally vibe with some people and naturally don't vibe with some people. It was giving me good and bad memories of like dates I've been on in the past. Which
so
also
true,
happens,
right?
right? Energy is a thing. Sometimes you just kind of know and sometimes you don't. And sometimes you hit it off right away and sometimes you just don't.
Exactly. And it's not even about the looks, right?
Well, it's that energy, like it's not even, well, I mean, that's obviously one zone where energy is important, but honestly, like some people just annoy me. Like when you're really listening to your intuition or really like clear, I just like, I can't handle, like, I know you're not supposed to pass judgment or like, but it's like you can choose not to be in that energy, right? Like you don't have to say anything disparaging or be rude or whatever. I just remove myself from the situation. I mean, Michael, that's a great example. I definitely agree it happens there, but I'm just saying, even just in general now for me, just in every day, or like when you go to like in real estate, you go to a listing appointment. I mean, there's, like, earlier you're talking about the money follows. I always talk about that in real estate. Just take care of people. Don't worry about the money. It always follows. But if you catch yourself where you're not as busy and then you go to one of these appointments with some crappy people with bad energy, like I just walk away. Like I know better. But on occasion, if things are tough and someone's in a spot where like, well, I could really use this deal. I mean, if you ignore your intuition, like the energy is such an important thing. And later in my career, I've learned that. And I've said it more than once. I'd rather be home with nothing before I want to be put in a bad situation. Because the thing is that even when we're good with our intuition, sometimes you fall in. Like you don't maybe you didn't see it up front, right? Like maybe sometimes things change. I mean, I'm dealing with a client right now that it's like, we're starting to think maybe they're bipolar, you just, sometimes you don't know up front. We've had a good relationship and all of a sudden this client's just, we just want to separate, like, oh, I want to be your friend and I want to keep doing business with you. And I'm just like, I'm done. Like, sorry, like I'm just done, which that's also maturity when you get to that point where you actually listen to your energy and make good decisions after listening to it versus, chasing the money or whatever other motivation you have.
Shane, so important. Intuition is like our internal GPS. And we all have it. But a lot of people don't know how to use it. Right?
True.
And it's great to tune in more and more. And there are practices, there are different things that we can actually, really exercise better intuition and how to actually, what I'm teaching people, how to read the signs from the universe, because the signs are always there. Again, it's our awareness. We are so blind, we don't see anything. And especially we are so caught up with our thoughts that we are not mindful and see what the world is outside. Right, Michael?
No, absolutely. And part of like going back to the conversation we had about the inner child, like if, one thing I've realized also is like with your intuition, right? If you're not listening to yourself and listening to your intuition, in a way, you're also betraying like who you are inside, like your inner child. And if you think about how a child typically reacts, I mean, Irina, you were talking about this earlier, right? Like as a child, we have all these dreams and hopes and aspirations. There's no limit, right? But then as we're sharing these, sometimes we get brought down a level and then we get brought down a level, we get brought down a level, right? And so in a way, it's the same thing. If you're not listening to your own intuition, if you're not staying true to yourself, in a way, you're parenting yourself, your inner child, the same way that you might have been parented as a kid, and you're just limiting yourself each time. So if you limit yourself this time, what do you think is going to happen next time, right? The hopes and aspirations, they're going to be dropped down. They're going to be closed in a little bit more, and just gradually over time, you're going to be slowly limiting yourself. Which is, I think, everything that you were sharing today about how do we combat against that? How do we identify that? How we open ourselves up more to the possibilities versus shrinking ourselves in?
So important. And Michael, great point. And like I said, we have to learn how to love our inner child more and how to listen what exactly that little boy or that little girl really wants, right? And once we connect and be more like compassionate, like really attending like to the child in the real life, right? And the more we tune in, it means, we are listening to our intuition and we know what our heart wants.
Well, Irina, I mean, before we kind of ask our question that we ask all our guests, I just wanted to ask one more thing. Is just like, is there anything else that you want to share with our live audience today? About, ingredients or tips or steps towards, how do we successfully manifest, what it is we truly want out of life? Is there anything we haven't covered yet that you want to cover?
Thanks so much. Great question. First of all, thanks for everybody who is going to be listening to this episode. And thanks, Michael and Shane, for inviting me. And just understand that there are no coincidences in life. If you happen to listen and watch this episode, it means that you meant to hear the messages, the information, and everything what pertains to that. So just like I said, take the life in your own hands. And the 3 secret ingredients for manifesting great life that we want. First of all, to know exactly what you want, to have that clarity, because people don't know where they are going. And that's why they're creating whatever, by default, whatever happens in their life, right? Second is to really connect with that desire, because that desire is going to keep you going no matter what, because you know that there's going to be some times that you don't feel like doing. There is going to be a time of disappointment, or, people don't understand you. You do not see the results you want, but keep going, because the quitters are not winners and the winners are not quitters. And like I said, we direct our energy and we meet our creation. And the third is to make that decision. Make that decision that this is the time. There is no better time than now. because yesterday is the history and tomorrow is not guaranteed. So make your life meaningful, make your life really magical, and explore to the fullest. Stay with that growth mindset and see where it's.
I love that. And we'll close. We'll close kind of this time with the question that we always like to ask. And Shane, like, I'm just going to make you the man of the honorable gentleman today to deliver the question to our guests.
Thank you, Michael. I haven't talked enough. I got to get my fix.
You haven't, no.
So Irina, basically, I mean, this podcast is, designed for pretty much all audiences, but, kind of our emphasis, our focus has been to, provide good information to agents, whether they're new or just looking to improve the game, just sharing resources, bringing on, great people. And, obviously your field of expertise and manifestation is super important to what we do. And, but here we want to have you put on one of our hats. And what we want to have you tell us is, from what you know about real estate, if you were going to start your own real estate business today, how would you tackle it? And this is just short form, like just quick, we're not going to go into a long thing, just more of just a short, like maybe some key points on what would you do if you were going to start doing real estate today?
Well, great question. I would start from the vision. Remember, first and foremost, you have to know what exactly you want to create. What kind of real estate? What is my income? What is my team? What exactly do I see myself? How, do I sell just in one state? Do I sell in all the states? Do I deal with, these luxury, wealthy customers? Who are my clients, right? What exactly the properties that I would be selling? So you have to put everything in your mind in such a detail, because like I said, clarity is the power. And once you write that vision, then you're going to start on working to create it, because everything is possible when you put the work and you believe in it.
I love that, because for a lot of us, that doesn't happen until once we're in the business, so I appreciate that. And the thing is, I like that you define the vision in a way that you can actually set up a game plan to go get it. Where I'm having issues with newer agents is when they already label themselves like, I'm going to be this. You're basically setting up the vision, and then you're going to find the steps to get there. Sometimes I have agents say, no, I just want to do buyers like this, but they haven't gotten their feet wet yet. They haven't gotten the experience to know what they're going to do. I like that you're actually laying out the vision, and then knowing how organized and efficient you are, you'll probably come up with the steps to tackle that.
Shane, so true, because we cannot come to our dream. We have to come from it. So first you have to have the final picture, what exactly it looks like. And then you build backwards with all the steps and everything else. And before you say no to something, let's first see what it looks like and where it's going to take you, right? So people have to learn how to stay curious with the curious mindset. And a lot of people say, I know it. That's like the famous phrase I hear a lot of times. I know it. But if people really know it, they would produce the results. But if the results are not matching their words of know it, it means there is still room for their growth to become more knowledgeable, to become more educated, and to continue in this process. And can I just add one more thing? So people in the real estate industry, no matter real estate or any other industry you take, right? They are not there just to make money. Like, what is the ending goal? What do you really want to do? Because money is just the energy. Money is just the means for us to enjoy the experiences that we want, because we do love to create the memories, right? That's exactly what we remember. We don't really connect much for the material things, but for the experiences. So for the agents, the first question would be like to ask, why do you want to make an X amount of dollars? What exactly is your life look like? What are you passionate about? What do you want to do with this money, right? Because people have to connect on that level. And then everything else is going to start coming out together. Once they know exactly why they want to generate X amount of dollars, they are going to be driven.
Well, there's
because
two things.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. I didn't mean to cut you off. No, what I was going to say is there's two things there. What you're referring to is like, what is your why? And that's what we ask people. What is your why?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
But then the other part too, that I always talk to people about is like, I'm passionate about helping people. I love the business. For me, it's like, I help people and the money follows. And
right.
So it's like, I mean, this is a quick way to weed out people that are in it for the wrong reason. They're just in it for the money. They're going to quickly figure out they're maybe not in the right place. But go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you short.
Right. And I just wanted to say, like you mentioned, why is the most important thing? Because people have to really have the passion, they like to connect with people, they love to help people. And that's exactly what's going to drive them, right? Because the same thing with shedding the weight off, right? People don't do it just to I don't like to use the term lose weight, because lose is like when they lose, they're going to gain it back, right? Because it's all about the energy of the words that we are using. But they are not doing it for the sake of weighing less, right? For their ideal weight. They do it maybe because they want to do these hiking trips that they cannot do because of, the extra weight that they have. They might want to feel more energy. They want to do things that they are not able to do, not just for the looks. Looks also important, but besides that, let's dig deeper, because there are so many other reasons behind it. And once you connect to these reasons, what is it going to give you? What kind of life you're going to be having? And the more you connect to that on a daily basis, the more it's going to keep you driving to the results.
Yeah, I love that. And it's always something you can always dig deeper, and it's always, asking the why, right? And staying curious not just with the world around you, but staying curious with yourself, right? And always digging in more and more with yourself, so that we really understand internally what's driving it versus maybe something external like money, which is kind of a lot of the themes and a good recap, I think, of what we talked about today. So Irina, I mean, it's been a pleasure having you. And for our audience that's listening now live, or that's going to be listening to this recording, what's the best way for them to connect with you if they want coaching or if they want to learn more about manifestation?
That's beautiful. I have the workshop that I do for free. I think that's a great start, because of course, I could offer the free consult, but I love to take people to the workshop because I want them to experience what it looks like and see if they are connected. And then we can have the consults together. So I want them to have that experience and to see if this is for them or not, because obviously it has to resonate with people. But just stay curious, explore. Come to the workshop. I'll be able to talk with you because I always do them on Zoom Live. It's not recorded. So bring all your questions related to whatever material you're going to hear, or anything that in the current moment worries you or you would like to get some clarity or support. I'm here. I'm all about people, and I just want everybody to thrive and live their best lives.
I love that. So Irina, thank you so much for joining us today. This was an absolute pleasure to meet you. And we both loved, I love geeking out with you on just kind of digging in on manifestation, the inner child. You and I, we definitely speak the same language. So I loved getting to learn a lot more from you today. Really appreciate you joining us. And for our audience out there that's listening in, thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll catch you on the next episode of the Top Producing Zone podcast. Thanks, everyone.